Alright, back with another one that quick. Goku and Marvel Super Season 2, Episode 4, The Unburned Soul. And yeah, before I even get it started, you already know what it is, man. Hit that like button. Hit that like button before I ask your mama out on a date. And then stand her up and don't show up. Alright, so hit that like button if you don't want that to happen. Or hit that like button if you don't want me in our DMs to begin with. Anyway, let's get it. The abandoned warehouse district of Hell's Kitchen became a crucible for Electra skills. Each shadow holding the promise of death that she so expertly delivered. Until tonight, her twin sides stuck with precision that would have failed any mortal opponent, clanging against the leather-clad form of the ghostrider with sparks of supernatural energy. Each thrust aimed for vital points, the throat, the joints, the eyes, yet the hellfire-infused entity barely even flinched. Electra's movements were a ballet of lethal intent, her muscles coiling and releasing with assassin's grace, but her weapons merely scraped against the divine protection granted by Zarathos. The air shimmered with heat haze as Ghostrider advanced, his steps methodical and unconcerned, chains dragging along the concrete with a sound like grinding bones. Electra's breath, usually controlled, even in combat, came in sharp gusts, not from exhaustion, but from growing frustration. This was no mere human. This was something altogether different. Something her years of hand training had never prepared her for. Her blades, usually so sure and deadly, felt like nothing more than children's toys against the eternal vengeance embodied in his demonic form. Electra found her back against a cold brick, the rough surface scraping through her thin uniform. Before her, the Ghost Rider raised one skeletal hand. The chains wrapped around his torso began to glow with the intensity of a forge. The links heated from dull iron to brilliant orange, then to white hot, dripping tiny globs of metaphysical metal that sizzled holes into the concrete floor. The air itself seemed to scream in protest, a high-pitched whine that vibrated in Electra's teeth. Ghost Rider's head tilted, the empty sockets of his skull fixing upon her. And in that gaze, Electra was about to feel the weight of every life she had ever taken, every target, every guard, every collateral casualty, rising up like a tidal wave of regret. The rider's voice, when it spoke, was the sound of 1,000 graves opening simultaneously. Your sins have summoned me, assassin. Now you shall feel them all. He drew back his arm, the glowing chain poised to strike its links, rearranging into a sharpened spearhead of divine judgment. Electra braced not for survival, but for whatever came after, her mind already retreating into the meditation that would carry her through death, or worse. The air crackled like a thunder as a blur of motion descended from the rooftop above. Goku had arrived, and he landed with a kick that would have decapitated a lesser being, only to meet empty air as Ghost Rider fluidly leaned back, the hellfire flickering in response to the new threat. Whew. Using his momentum, Goku planted one foot against the warehouse wall, pushing off with enough force to crater the brickwork, then flipped backward through the air, his mystic robes flaring around him. He landed light on his feet, tail twitching with excitement, already assessing this new opponent. The mystical energy radiating from the flaming skull was unlike anything he had encountered before. Not chi, but something ancient and more dark. Ghost Rider turned fully toward this interruption, the chains around his body rattling with anticipation. For a moment, the two regarded each other, the spirit of vengeance in the sand raised by the hunter. One burning with hellfire, the other grinning with anticipation. Goku landed squarely between Electra and her executioner, his boots scraping on the gravel-strewn concrete. He didn't fully turn toward her, keeping his eyes locked on the supernatural threat, but he offered a sidelong glance that spoke volumes. Electra's expression remained carved from marble, but a slight narrowing of her eyes betrayed her relief and irritation. Now, where would you be without me? Goku said, his voice carrying that familiar, teasing tone that somehow cut through the tension. You were starting to look like prey for a second there, Electra. Electra straightened slowly, retrieving her fallen slide from the ground where they had skittered after bouncing off Ghost Rider's invulnerable form. I had him right where I wanted him, she lied smoothly, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. Goku's grin widened and possibly further. Yeah, I could see that. Back against the wall is exactly where you want to be when fighting a guy who's on fire. Classic Electra strategy. Despite the situation, despite the supernatural danger radiating before them, this felt familiar. This banter, this unspoken trust between two warriors who had faced threats together across continents. Goku turned his full attention to the Ghost Rider, who stood watching the exchange with silent intensity, the flames of his skull burning brighter with growing impatience. "All right, hothead," Goku said, cracking his knuckles. "This looks like my type of party." Ghost Rider's voice emerged as a symphony of tormented souls, each word dripping with damnation. "To associate with this assassin is an admission of your corruption. You will share her judgment." Goku merely shrugged, falling into a loose combat stance. "Right. Now I'm just interested in seeing if you can fight as good as you look." He gestured with one hand, inviting the attack. "So how about we skip the monologue and you show me what makes you so special?" The Ghost Rider responded, not with words, but with a sudden uncoiling of his chain, which slithered along the ground like a serpent of fire and steel, the links heating into incandescent levels once more. Goku's tail twitched eagerly. This was exactly the kind of strange, powerful opponent he had hoped to find in this world when he returned. The two combatants rushed each other in a blur of motion that Electra's eyes could barely even track. Goku led with a testing jab to the rider's chest, whose fists met enchanted leather that resisted with supernatural durability. The impact echoed through the warehouse district like a gunshot. Ghost Rider responded with a haymaker that Goku ducked underneath, feeling the heat of the hellfire singe his hair as the fist passed overhead. The two then separated, then came together again, exchanging blows that shook the very foundations of the surrounding area that was around them. Goku's eyes shone with excitement. This opponent hit with astonishing strength, each blow carrying weight beyond mere physical mass. With every impact, Goku could feel the mystical nature of the flames that wreathed his opponent. They burned not with heat alone, but with something deeper, something that sought to scar the very soul itself. Yet Goku's spirit was enhanced by years of brutal training and mystical conditioning. He resisted the effects, his chi flaring around him like an invisible shield. For every hellfire-enhanced strike the rider landed, Goku returned two of his own, his combat style evolving in corporate, the pressure point techniques learned from Shang-Chi, and the lethal efficiency taught by Electra herself, as he made himself a living weapon, thanks to T'Challa. Recognizing that physical blows alone might not end this confrontation, Goku began to extend his palm. He gathered his chi into a sphere of brilliant blue energy. The air hummed with power, and the gravel at his feet began to vibrate and lift from the ground, caught in the energy field. Across from him, Ghost Rider responded in kind, opening his skeletal hand to summon a roiling sphere of hellfire that twisted and screamed with the tormented voices of the damned. The two orbs of energy, one the focused life force of a Saiyan warrior, the other the concentrated vengeance of hell itself, illuminated the warehouse district in stark contrasting colors, celestial blue against damned orange. Without ceremony, both combatants hurled their projectiles simultaneously. The attacks crossed the distance between them in less than an eye blink. The resulting collision, when they met midway, created a concussive blast that shattered every remaining window in the 3-block radius, and sent Electra stumbling backward despite her braced stance. Goku's chi attack tore through Ghost Rider's chest, creating a gaping hole that should have been fatal to any living being on this planet. For a fraction of a second, Goku thought the fight was over, until he watched in astonishment as the hellfire around the rider's body swirled and condensed, knitting the wound back together as if it had never existed. The rider stood whole again, the flames of his skull burning even brighter, as if energized by the attack itself. "What the hell?" Goku exclaimed, his eyes widening in a genuine surprise. "How did you?" He had faced regenerators before, but this was different. This wasn't cellular reconstruction, but something more fundamental, as if rewriting reality itself through hellish magic. Ghost Rider advanced, the chains around his body slithering like awakened serpents. "Mortal weapons cannot harm what is already damned," he intoned, the sound echoing from all directions at once. In that moment of distraction, the rider struck, his chains wrapped around Goku's limbs with supernatural speed, binding him in links that burned with cursed fire. With Goku momentarily restrained by the supernatural chains, Ghost Rider closed the distance between them, his skeletal hand shooting out to grip Goku by the throat. The hold was impossibly strong, fueled by divine vengeance. Rather than mere muscle, Goku struggled against the grip, and he freed a hand, prying at the bony fingers. But the rider held fast. Then the empty sockets of the rider's skull began to fill with swirling dimensions of torment. Galaxies of suffering forming in those depthless voids. "Look into my eyes," the rider commanded, his voice compelling obedience on a mystical level. "Your soul will be weighed against the sufferings that you have caused." Materializing his power pole with a thought, Goku swung it in wide air, catching Ghostrider squarely in the skull with the resounding clang that sent the spirit of vengeance stumbling backward. "Thank you for that trick, Strange," he said as he recentered himself. "For what it's worth, Spirit, I don't regret any of my hunts." Recognizing the stalemate of pure physical strength against this supernatural chain, Goku's mind raced for a new tactic. With a thought, he dismissed his power pole, the vibranium staff vanishing in a shimmer of golden light, back into its pocket dimension, a technique bestowed upon him by Dr. Strange. Before the Ghost Rider's chain could snap forward against the sudden lack of resistance, Goku's free hand shot up, his fingers contorting into a precise mystical sign. Cracking bands of yellow energy, the Electra's whips materialized from his fingertips, lashing out with a sound like tearing reality. They wrapped around the Hellfire-forged links of the metaphysical, the ancient power of Zarathos against the newly honed mystical might of the Saiyan sorcerer. The air between them warped and sizzled, a testament to the equal yet opposing natures of their power. Goku gritted his teeth, his feet scraping backward against the asphalt as the rider exerted immense force, each link of the chains groaning under the incredible strain. Refusing to be subdued, the Ghost Rider demonstrated the versatility of his abilities. With his main chain occupied, his other skeletal hand effortlessly produced a large, polished Smith & Wesson 66 revolver from within his jacket, the metal already glowing with eternal hellfire. He didn't aim, he simply pointed and fired. The gunshots were deafening. But instead of bullets, roaring projectiles of concentrated hellfire erupted from the barrel, and Goku's eyes widened. Maintaining the Eldritch Whip with one hand, he thrust his other palm forward, barking a quick incantation. A large hexagonal shield of seraphim sprung to life, its shimmering green surface intercepting the hellfire blast. Each impact sent violent ripples across the energy shield and jolted through Goku's arm, forcing him to back a step with each shot. He was being pushed back, his magical stamina draining as he defended against the relentless assault. He was running out of ideas. Pure power wasn't working, and a defensive battle was a battle he would eventually lose against this inexhaustible spirit. As another hellfire round impacted his shield, the solution came to him, not from Kraven's teachings in battle, but from Strange's lessons on the nature of existence itself. He remembered the Sorcerer Supreme using a powerful spell to temporarily separate his astral form from his physical body. As a disciplinary lesson, this foe was a spirit of vengeance, a being bound to a human host. Perhaps the same principle applied. Goku dropped the shield of Seraphim, allowing the Ghost Rider's chain to pull forward with sudden, terrifying momentum. As he flew toward the spirit of vengeance, he focused all his remaining ki and mystical energy into his free hand. His palm began to glow not with blue chi or green magic, but with a pure, brilliant white energy. The power of astral displacement. Instead of resisting the pull, he embraced it, becoming a projectile himself. Just before colliding, he slammed his glowing white palm directly onto the center of the rider's chest. Not with physical force, but with spiritual intent. A shockwave of pure white energy erupted from the point of the impact, silent yet overwhelming. The hellfire surrounding the Ghost Rider flickered and died instantly, and the terrifying visage of the flaming skull dissolved like smoke. In its place stood a dazed, momentarily confused man in a leather jacket. "Johnny Blaze," he stumbled back, looking at his own hands in disbelief. The compulsion of Zarathos temporarily severed by Goku's astral strike. Goku landed softly before him, his own energy spent, but his grin triumphant. "That was a good fight," Goku said, genuine respect in his voice. "Really good. I haven't had to think that hard in a while. Hope we can do it again sometime." He glanced over at the recovering Electra, then back to Johnny. "But unfortunately, my friends had enough for one night. It's time for us to leave." Before Johnny could fully process what had happened or respond, Goku was already moving. In a fluid motion, Goku scooped up a weakened but alert Electra into his arms. With his free hand, he traced a circle in the air, the sparks of a sling ring portal igniting and widening to reveal the pristine snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas. He leapt through the gateway just as the hellfire began to flicker back to life around Johnny Blaze behind him. The portal snapped shut, severing the cold New York alley from the thin, crisp mountain air. Goku looked down at Electra in his arms, his signature grin returning. You know, he began, his tone teasing, a devil back there told me that you've been talking about me while I haven't been around. He raised an eyebrow. I guess that means you miss me. With a swift, graceful movement, Electra flipped herself out of his arms, landing steadily on a rocky outcrop, her expression a mix of annoyance, relief, and sharp curiosity. She crossed her arms, fixing him with a piercing gaze. You vanished for years, Dimitri, and that's your explanation. Start talking. And that's where we're going to end it, man. I hope you guys liked it, man. A Ghostrider encounter. I really didn't know how I was going to end it, man. I was like, damn, how am I going to make this fight end? So I decided to do the trick where you get pushed out of your spirit, or your spirit gets pushed out of your body, like they show you in the Avengers or in the Doctor Strange movie and stuff like that. I decided to go with that. But anyways, man, catch you on the next one. Peace.